hopeful Uganda that we're in. And this is not about the leaders that govern us, no. It's about the population. The population still has hope that there's still much more we can achieve.
Exactly.
They'll wake up out of their bed and, go out and grind, hoping that the days will get better or tomorrow has something better to offer. But if I could use one simple word, it would be, it's a very unequal, unbalanced Uganda. You can see the poverty line when you read the UNBS statistics.
Exactly.
You see that so many people who are still very poor. We can see the education levels. We still have very many students who don't go beyond P7.
Exactly.
When you look at our health infrastructure, we still have mothers who die giving birth, and this is because they lack basic equipment in these hospitals. When you look at the human rights and the freedoms and the laws that should be protecting Ugandans, we all can cry and see, you can say something and you don't know where you'll be the next minute. So it's a very unequal, unbalanced Uganda, but with a hopeful population. And that's why every time we have these discussions, it goes ahead to offer that, there is still hope. And if we nurture that hope, maybe the next day we'll have something better to offer.
I love your middle of when you say when we nurture these hopes, because I think as far as we can all agree, the hope still exists. We all have hopes that maybe one day I will definitely have a better Uganda that we deserve.
Hope is the last thing to die. Even after your brain is dead, hope dies.
Hope still lives.
Yeah.
Wow.
And usually it's the one that kills you, so.
So once you lose hope, you're dead. It's a discussion about hope. Probably if you're a young journalist listening to us or watching us apparently, your hope should not die. Your hope should not die. Hopes of being the next generation of journalists that you want to actually envision. Your hope of being the next Olivia, your hope of being the next Tracy or Amphi here should not die at the end of the day. Tracy, I want to get your thoughts about the Uganda that we are definitely living in. Looking at how things are delivered, most especially in terms of services, is it a little bit, is it okay? Or should we actually say we are content?
It's not okay. That we certainly are not where we want to be, but we are certainly not where we used to be. And I think it's very important that, like they said, we keep with the hope. But equally, I feel like we let the responsibility of having a good country, we just let it for those that govern us, those that lead us. And that's the problem with us as young people, is that we've let it sort of go to a certain type of people. Well, that's I read recently, power is I think gotten or something like that. So we've sort of given it to them, and then we've sort of become the critics. At this point in our life, as we need to actually be very intentional with being present. We need to be intentional with grabbing a stool if there is no seat at the table. We need to be very intentional with if there is no seat, stand, but be present. I don't care if you're in a ventilator. I don't care if you're in the window. Be present at decision-making tables, at decision-making levels. If you cannot, then mobilize critical mass. Make sure your voices are heard. Ask not what your country can do for you,
but what you can do.
But what you can do for your country. And I think as young people, this is it. This is it. If it's innovations, go out there. Make something better. If not better, make it affordable. Make it affordable, but do something. And I think
Sounds
as young
like
people,
the Uganda we deserve.
The Uganda we deserve is certainly going to be up to us. It's not up to anyone. We have to organize, and we are the biggest population. So if you're saying we're 78% young people, but we're really arguing with the other 22%, then I think we really need to re-strategize.
That will have taken us to a very different conversation, but I love your submission, Tracy, most especially when you say that we need to be so much present, most especially in all things to do with what has to be delivered. There is a very wise man who actually wrote and said, I think that was Dan Heath in his book Upstream. He says that we did not create the problems, but of course we come in to solve them, not because we brought them, but it's upon us, and we take responsibility of those problems.
You're absolutely right. A good world is your right, but designing it is your responsibility, and you have to take charge. Like it doesn't matter what you found, you have to leave the world a little bit better.
So as young journalists or young people, Anthea, I want to understand what role should we play to see that we shape the Uganda we want? Tracy has said and given us statistics, 78%. We cannot be competing with the rest of the percentage.
I think for me, the role I believe we should play is very personal. Other people may have a more, how would I put it, a more diverse way to think of it, but the role we have to play is internal. I remember in my time during the fellowship, I had this session called the yoga mat session or something of the sort. And it was basically like a little bit of a therapy thing. I think the role we have to play involves a lot of understanding ourselves, understanding, and after you understand yourself, you can understand what you can contribute to the fight, and you can understand your limitations, but you can also understand what others can contribute and their limitations as well. So I'm very interested in the study of emotions and psychology. I'm very interested in how that contributes to the bigger fight, because whenever you see people who have made strides and consistently, without being, haphazard, and I don't even mean revolutionaries, but people in the society who have actually made a contribution that's long-lasting, they tend to be very stable people within, right? So all this big active work that we do on the outside is very vital. It's also very vital that we preserve ourselves in whatever fight we are going for. So just to answer your question, El Shaddai, I think the role we have to play is to take care of ourselves as we try to contribute to the society we are trying to build, so that we can be here to enjoy what we are building. You know what I mean? I think to really pay attention to our emotions, pay attention to our psychological well-being, and pay attention to the emotions and psychological well-being of others, and just see how we can, because this work of designing a society that we want, it's exhausting.
And it's so much costly.
There's so much burnout.
Is it the reason as to why young people do not want to get involved?
No,
Maybe.
your heart is broken. Like, your heart is perpetually broken from the start. You look at how big that task is and how uphill it is, and you're like, I'm one man. Can I carry this whole country by myself? I mean,
Absolutely
there's news fatigue.
Maybe that's why I want to bring in Olivia. I want to understand from Anthea's submission. She talks about being, exhausted, having a hill to climb. That's where we get weary and say, you know what?
You see, I mean, it's true, we all get exhausted. We're human. But this is a cliche saying where they say, if you can't run, walk. If you can't walk, crawl.
But I've walked, I've crawled, and I feel like my knees are off.
If you can't, just continue making a step. It doesn't matter. You don't have to wake up in one day and change the world. It's a gradual process. So if you think you're going to wake up one day and boom, the change is there. And like she said, I believe we shall need to. If we want to make a difference as young people, one of the things we have to look at the things that divided the 22% we are talking about, tribalism, all these things that used to divide them. We need to bury them, join our hands together. We are a powerful lot. We are a big lot of people. If we are 70%, 78% we are talking about, then I believe if El Shaddai made a contribution, Anthea made a contribution, Tracy, and we all come together, it's going to make a difference. And how do we do this? I believe in things like innovations that we make. In things like, these days we have social media, you have a platform. You don't have, to see the president first to tell them about what's happening. If you can write a small article and publish it and, put it out there and, express what's happening in your community, I believe someone is going to pick it up and, people will comment and you're creating awareness.
Someone made a statement and said, sometimes when we write letters to the president, they have to go through the very people you're reporting to.
Exactly. So I believe there are other ways, because we cannot embark on the traditional ways, and we now have more creative ways of, we don't have to go to the streets. I don't believe in violence. So in a way, we must bury the things that used to divide the lot that we are fighting against and do things our way. And we definitely believe that, and we know it, that our ways of how we choose to approach how we want to change Uganda is entirely up to us. We don't have to go back to the bushes. Probably they're all cut down now.
we don't have bushes.
And we cannot go back on the streets because we saw what happened
Recently.
in November
Yes.
2021. So we must find ways that unite us and you know, benchmark on those to change the Uganda that we're currently in.
It's a very amazing conversation.
Olivia did raise a good point. And I think as young people, we have one problem. I've been at social media, and it seems so we are not our parents' choices. Honestly, because they went to the bush, I did not go to the bush. I don't subscribe to the bush. But because you know that I come from a line of people that went to the bush, you feel I am naturally aligned to the bush mentality.
Yeah.
I have that. No, we are young people right now. We face the same problems. And I feel the moment we stop this whole aligning to history, aligning to it's I am a different person. Olivia is a different person. However, we are all young people. I think right now we are working towards a Uganda that really best suits all of us.
Yeah.
We've learned from our mistakes. I want to believe we have, but that's the thing. And once we are united, you know, as young people, I think.
And that will be one of the sessions that will be discussed today, building an inclusive nation, you know, on our roundtable discussion that will be coming in later on. But I want us to shift our conversation to all things concerned public delivery, service delivery. And I will actually say that public services are definitely so diverse, and we want to shed a light onto them. Thea here said she owns an MME, right? MSE. I really want to understand, in your area of operation, have services been delivered the way they're supposed to be delivered? And if not so, what went wrong? What should be done right? Is this the time we need to reflect? And also maybe not forgetting the good services that have been delivered by government. Because for as much as there are some shortcomings, there are some strides that have been really made. And we need to actually, you know, are proud on them. But let's start with you, Anthea.
Well, El Shaddai putting me on the spot because I have to talk about my best and worst friend.
Please be objective as much as you can.
I think I'm going to focus on two areas that really hit home for me. That's the taxation side and the health side.
Exactly.
In terms of taxation, there's the positives and the negatives. On the positive side, they've designed a system that's very easy for us to use. But then, on the flip side of that, it's also exploitative, you know. The more the revenue narrows for the country, the more they squeeze us, right? So you have a lot of people saying, now, why do I keep doing this? Why do I keep doing business if I'm going to pay 38% in taxes, right? Okay. If I'm going to sell, for example, animal feed, and I'm going to be taxed 28%, right? Why would I keep doing that? Is that lucrative? But then at the same time, it's a bit of a toxic, it's abusive. We have an abusive relationship with URA, actually, where they give everything they have to give you, and they kind of leave you, and right when you're about to relax, they're like, madam, everything you have, give it back to us, right? And there's very little incentive. And it's also that old age tale of, you're giving all the incentives to the foreign investors. Why would I keep investing here, right? Why don't we all just go into like dirty business? Excuse my French.
Maybe we should also go and be foreign investors in particular countries.
And you know, a lot of people are now doing that, and still, because I was attending a session with Uganda Investment Authority, and they say they face an issue where a lot of local investors are partnering with foreign investors who are bigger than them to kind of like
Run away from.
defraud, and benefit from what the others gain. But in a way that distorts the country's statistics, because it shows that still local investment is very low. And if anyone is like looking at the risk index in terms of loans, this puts loans higher. Like it just devalues us as a country. If you to say boo-boo is what you're doing, buy Uganda, build Uganda, you're not helping us. And then when I come to the health sector, right, it's extremely disappointing. Nobody here has an MRI machine.
Before you get into the health sector, Anthea, I want to understand from maybe Tracy and Olivia here. Let's just put a pause there. We've been in an era of COVID-19 has hit 2020, 2021, half of it. And of course, here we are 2022, Ebola comes through. Should we say that the Ministry of Health has really handled all these, unprecedented times with a lot of critical care?
Do you really want an answer to that, El Shaddai?
Are we going to?
I'm going to...
Because let us all agree that there's been a positive...
I'm going to try and be objective.
Exactly.
I was lucky. I was at the helm of the COVID pandemic. I reported COVID. I've reported partially on Ebola.
For COVID?
I've 3 different times.
Yes.
So when you say Ministry of Health handled this, we saw interns, students who are helping, who are giving support to the already crying and shambling health sector that did not have enough doctors. They were not paid. That's one. That's true. And these people put their lives at stake.
Exactly.
And some of them died at the front line. Then we had PPE and some of the COVID money. You remember how much money was asked, and they had to pass a different budget to handle COVID. But do you know where that money went? They told us they bought tens of 100 million. Who does that?
Cars.
I mean, you would, and now we have like the American embassy when they decided to contribute money for Ebola, for the fight against Ebola. They did not give them cash. They decided to give them to buy the things that they needed. And we saw the health minister say, please tell these partners that I need cash. And we are wondering, the cash that you are given, corruption, misused it. You cannot account for this money, and you're asking for more cash. And you have these well-wishers who are buying the things you claim you want to buy.
Olivia, in all this discussion, isn't there a window of positivity?
Yeah, that's what I was going to get to. If it's like on a scale of 10, we shall say that 6% they failed, then maybe the 4%, because for the first 6 months, the virus was a bit contained, and then we went into lockdowns, but then they made a few policies there that didn't help. People didn't have food, and then you're locking them out and stuff like that. But also, we had a committed health sector.
Exactly.
I mean, in terms of the doctors and the nurses, and most of those people were the people who are volunteers, and these are people who are promised a stipend at the end of the fight.
So they took the risk to gain in return.
And at the end of the day, they are not even paid. So credit where it's due, but it will be hard to give that credit.
I think it's overthinking of everything Olivia has said. It's just making me think there's a lot of injustice in the health sector, mainly for people who get in there trying to do their noble work. There's so much injustice. It can feel like you're wasting your time, even though you wanted to help, and you're just going to end up heartbroken. Yeah, there's no point.
First, your case is different. Your question is
different.
no. I mean, your question is going to be different.
Why now?
From Anthea's submission and probably Olivia's, I really want to understand now. Getting back to the theme of this year's Expo, public, facilitating public service delivery through journalism. How best can journalists do report about public service delivery without being objective? Because for as much as I understand, Anthea is a journalist, but she's also she runs a business that probably will influence what she will do. Exactly. So where's the balance?
Here's the thing, and I think as journalists we need to really, the word objective doesn't necessarily mean get yourself out of the equation. Be objective enough to state facts as is, but also be present enough to realize what the community is and who you're representing. Which stories are you telling? You're not going to find people that are starving and then sugarcoat it and say people are fasting. We need to be very, very clear about what's happening. I happen to be a journalist who's also into public service delivery, sort of delivery as in itself, because I am very passionate about justice, strong institution, and peace. The idea behind NALO, the foundation that I work for and that I started with good friends of mine, is to make sure people understand the laws that govern them. Simplifying them is one way of making sure you create awareness, that people are aware about the laws that govern them. You cannot ask for justice if you don't understand the laws. It just doesn't work. And
Dream about what you don't know.
you can't. You can't ask for accountability. You can't ask for transparency. You can't ask for better. And I think the
the health sector, partly, but have you had submission, in line with the healthy sector?
No, it's just really heartbreaking because I go back to one of my best friend's parents had cancer during the lockdown, right?
yes,
And I think this is when my heart truly began to, my eyes opened and my heart truly began to break because there was no MRI machine. We were in the middle of a lockdown. There's no, like, very well, yeah, there's no, so you have to charter now like a plane to go and get help wherever you can get help. But which average Ugandan who goes to Chirudu for healthcare services can afford that? You find that people die on spot with just emergency healthcare that we could have done better with.
Yeah.
And some of these things don't even, like, they don't even require so much sophistication. It's just put
priority. Where do we have our priorities as a nation?
Buy better needles and make sure people are not recycling needles to get HIV. Like buy more.
That's very interesting. I want to really applaud the work journalists are doing, the work that the media is doing, in sort of putting the plight of people at the forefront of their storytelling. If it wasn't for the media, maybe we wouldn't know about the airline scandals. We would not know about the health scandals. We would not know. So stealing from the sick was a powerful one right there. We're still trying to understand how bloggers were paid a certain amount to do Uganda Airlines, promote the airlines. And I think it's upon us, and this is why this very expo is very, very important. Once you understand the role of the media and yourself as a journalist in making sure people have transparency, people have accountability at their, at their disposal in terms of the services that they truly deserve, that they pay taxes for, then we will understand the power that the Fourth Estate has.
Amazing. The power the Fourth Estate has. This particular week, all discussions are going to be channeled to facilitating, to a theme, concerning facilitating effective public service delivery through journalism. What can we do better as journalists, most especially when it comes to reporting about that? What have we not done? And probably how best can we do it at the end of the day? So all these discussions are going to be right here at the MCI Media Hub for young journalists to actually pick a leaf and also be able to report about all these things concerning public delivery. The discussion is actually still going on. In just a few minutes, we'll definitely be, connecting to the main auditorium. But before we get there, let's talk about the Uganda we want. The Uganda we want. In just a few minutes, I will give you one minute to each and every one of you here. Avia, what's the Uganda that you definitely want? I know you might have a full story.
You're really going to have to time me. You're going to have to time me.
Just summarize it in 1 minute.
3 words. I want an enlightened Uganda. I want an educated Uganda, because almost everything can be solved with education. Early marriages, teenage pregnancies, everything, almost everything is solved with education. Exactly. And I also want, I can't stress this enough, an emotive Uganda. I want people to realize their vulnerabilities. One of my favorite people to look up to in this world, Toto Wolff, the team principal from Mercedes, he always says, and I think that's for the people in the audience who are here to look for role models or something of the sort. He has this theory where he says, no matter how powerful and creative and innovative and good at leadership you are, the more you have of that, the more vulnerable you are. So if you embrace your emotive side, you're capable of tapping into it to become a little more creative. So I don't want us in the fight for the Uganda we want to forget to take care of ourselves. Also, I wish there were more studies in terms of emotions, like Elif Shafak suggested that when people are collecting data, U-Boss for example, they don't collect data about emotions of the people, and of which it's very useful information because it drives behavior.
I think I will definitely tell you to
those are my
put a
60
pause right
seconds.
there. Tracy, in just 30 seconds. In just 30 seconds.
I'm afraid Olivia will use 3 seconds at this point. You keep producing. But here's the thing. The Uganda I want to see, one, is fairly just. It has to be all-inclusive. It has to work for everybody. It has to really be, I can't stress justice enough. I feel like the moment you're humane enough to know that this is my sister, this is my brother, and I'm my brother's keeper, you're fair. You're fair. You have equal justice for women and men.
It's justice.
For me, it's justice.
Olivia.
So for me, I think I'm going to be very straight. I think I want a happy, contented, peaceful, and prosperous Uganda.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's go into our performance from Saint Nelly said. The discussion is still going on.
mutuyambeko kubanga ffe abasinga obungi abaana tuzaddeko z'omuvubuka kulembera ensitombuzaabuza kyennoonya kuzimba uganda nteeka ku mwanjo bwe nnoonyaako okulya ndaga ekkubo mpite ennoonya ekyenkola kiyamba ba mikwano n'emiti emito z'omuvubuka kulembera ensitombuzaabuza kyennoonya kuzimba uganda nteeka ku mwanjo bwe nnoonyaako okulya ndaga ekkubo mpite ennoonya ekyenkola kiyamba ba mikwano Solution is the jendi no muvubuka tega amatuva mu wolokoso pokopoko bananda babatya nyigiro kolango kazana tonyoma mirimu fuba nyono okukwana emikwana egikuyamba ebitabo soma sebo nyabo okozesa obwongo bwo n'ekigenderera gwe kipa wa golo yo tebwemalirira buza gundi kyakusingako bagamba endege ezimala kuba nnyingi ne zivuga zirindaba olwange bagira tawa musibe mmereja bw'endobooza y'abalere emyaka gikugendako abageya akabageye abaseka kabaseke Uganda joli mwense kwetaga leero n'enkya okay kati nno ntuddeko bwenzijidde mwatumbadde nnyimiridde kansooke ntuleko kubanga ebibuuzo bingi mu nfo ate nga ansa zo ntono nnyo Uganda mwana wattu eyaleero twetaaga ebintu bingi nga basajja tebafaayo politicians babeeranga abeebase bwe tugambako ne tuzuukuka nga bwoboogera kaakati nno bintu bingi ebibaawo n'owulira nti nno pineti yatekinze over pineti muzungu gwate oli muddugavu ne bikubuzaabuza ebiseera gwe ebisinga twagala Uganda mwattu erimu amalwaliro ng'amalwaliro tegali empute n'eddagala twagala Uganda ng'omukyala bw'ayingira tasasula buwanana bwa nsimbi okuzaala twagala Uganda nga bw'embeera ku luguudo sirinnya mu binnya mwana wattu kwonoona mmotoka twagala Uganda nga bw'enjogerako n'enzija ne bwe balwale mwattu tebankuba nzijukira omwaka zaali 2020 twali mu lwale ebiseera ebyo bwe tutandika kampeyini neetegereza nnyo nagenda okulaba gwe mwana wattu ebimbuzaabuza waaliwaawo bajournalist bangi baakubwa bagenda gwe mwana wattu kwata mawulire baakubwa nnyo abamu ne bamenyeka emigongo naye tetwalaba gavumenti gwe kye yakolawo ekiseera kyatuuka 2021 nendaba waaliwo era mwana wattu abaakubwa mu maaso g'ekitongole gwe mwattu ekyakabi ekya human rights buli omu mwattu yakyewuunya kaakati nno njagala DJ Soko kendezeeko kubanga njagala bawulirize biti yokka gwe mwana wattu si ekola tubaaniriza mu kafo gwe kano amannya mpitibwa Sentinel said Nsubuga neddira mamba yokka akabbiro muguya newankubadde ndabyeyo mwana wattu basista abakabi nzize n'omulamwa Uganda gye njagala okulaba bwe neetegereza sista mulabanga yasinga mu nsi muno bw'omukwatako n'omuzanyisa gwe n'omukuba n'omutulugunya kibeera tekikola sensi bw'omukwatako n'omurepinga ate n'awaaba omusango n'ogulekaawo tekikola sensi bw'omukwatako n'omuwasa nga tanneetuuka tannaweza 18 and above kibeera tekikola sensi juzi naliko mu Eastern region mwana wattu neewuunya ng'abaana bato 14 years bali married waliwo ne gwe bandaga he's just 12 years old wabula twamuwasizza baatuwadde akasawo ka sukaali tekikola sensi kubanga bw'ogendako ku poliisi emisango egyo munnange bagijjayo ku poliisi neewuunya nnyo newentudde wane eno nkyewuunya. Ladies and gentlemen,
can we give Nelly said and a loud hand clap? Thank you so much for your performance.
thank you so much for hosting me.
Yes.
Wow,
Yes.
wow. Very,
That's
very
the Uganda we
insightful.
want to see.
Yeah, very insightful and so entertaining. That is Nelly said for you. A big round of applause. Come on, everybody. Amazing, amazing.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I have something special.
Yeah.
Every year, I wrap up the full year and come up with what I call wrap up. So this year, I have something special again. I started in 2015 doing wrapping up the years. So that's why most of you call me a rap journalist, because of the news I wrap up towards the end of the year. So look out for Wrap Up 2022.
Yeah.
Entertaining, inspiring, and educating. Much love.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much. That was Nelly said for you, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for being around. We are having a lot of insightful, entertaining content that is going to be happening right here, starting today, the Media Expo 2022.
The very first time I attended Media Challenge Initiative Expo, it was actually last year. and I had an amazing experience. And it's quite surprising that this time I'm on this stage hosting with Big Boy Shaq.
Thank you so much. Amazing, Hannah. Good to be with you. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Media Expo 2022. We are very excited to be your hosts, Big Boy Shaq and Hannah Arinaitwe. And my goodness, my oh my, y'all look so amazing today, this very beautiful morning. I mean, we had a session in the radio studio. Joseph El Shaddai, Tracy Kansime, Olivia Nakalembe, and Anthea. And they were talking about their experiences as, being alumni, part of the alumni committee of MCI, the Media Challenge Initiative, and also relating it to the theme.
Facilitating effective public service delivery through journalism. Now, the very first time I heard about public service delivery, I was very intrigued by the power that journalists have to inform the society about the services that they receive. But let's get started. Put your hands together for the CEO of the Media Challenge Initiative, Abbas.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, Abbas Mpindi.
Hello. Hey, Shaq, is this yours?
No.
Good morning. Good morning. Hi, guys. I'm going to make us jump a bit, if you're feeling cold. It's a pleasure to host you here. Welcome to the 2022 Media Challenge Expo. And this year we are talking facilitating public service delivery or effective public service delivery through journalism. Now, in most cases, we cover everything public services. So it's education, roads, security, health, and other issues. But as journalists, we actually never see the bigger picture of the system and how it works. And we are sent to cover these stories just as probably events happening, reports being launched, and also maybe a hospital or a road coming into place. But we never think about the people who will use these facilities 20 years from the day you do that story. And when you think about it, stories matter. And if you're a journalist and you're thinking in a systems way, you'll realize that if you did a follow-up story of, let's say, a hospital that launched and you covered it, and you followed up 10 years after, you would have quite a big story to tell about the change, about how the hospital is being managed, about how many people visit that hospital. I'm saying that in particular because this year and also next year, our focus as an organization is going to be supporting young journalists and mainstream journalists on public service delivery reporting. And that's important for us because we are, a Ugandan organization. 2, we understand the state of things in our country. And 3, as you can see at the back, we want to use journalism to make the world a better place. And we believe that, part of ourselves being involved into actively holding leaders accountable to the services that we deserve will start with a journalist. But in this space, it is special because you heard Saint Nelly said, he's a rap journalist. But what he was talking about is critical as a storyteller. And as a leader, I'm inspired by that, but I also want to hear these kind of visions come to life. Equally, our next panel is going to be somewhat not the usual panel that you find or see, but we will get to hear the visions of a playwright, of a comedian, of an animator, of a poet, an academician, or social anthropologist, and what it means for them to build the Uganda they want, not just for themselves, but for the next generations that they foresee. So, my ask of you, all of you are here. One is, if you're a young journalist, think about not the Uganda of today, but think about the Uganda 30 years, 50 years from now, 100 years from now. Think not just Uganda, think about Africa as a continent, because the stories you tell will determine the narratives your great-great-grandchildren will experience, right? If you're a playwright, you're an academician, the research we do, the content we put out there will determine and will create the continent that we want. And that's why that is very important for me as a narrative change leader. So pay attention, experience this, take notes, go back home and see how you can put this into practice. The next 4 days until Friday, we have different activities. So we have a panels today, and later skills building sessions. Tomorrow the same, we'll be looking at constructive storytelling or constructive or solutions journalism and how it applies to public service delivery reporting. And the last 2 days will focus a lot on the students. One is we have an open call for anyone out there who wants to be the next Sami Wetala, the next TV presenters, and the next radio hosts to come and audition. In most cases, you struggle to go to media houses to do screen tests and voice tests. We are opening up our radio studio, and we are opening up our space, which we'll create here, for any student, be it a journalist or not a journalist, to come and audition. And our future thinking around it is to create a database of talented presenters that we can continue to interact with and also pitch to media houses for potential jobs. Most media houses come to us to ask for students and talents, so we want to make sure we have a database in place. So if anyone wants to say, we want to replace Olivia Nakalembe, not replace you, but we want, the next Olivia Nakalembe, Olivia Komgisha, we are able to say, there you go, we have the talent in place. So if you know a young person in your school, in your university, in your community, please tell them to come here on Thursday. On Friday, we have the grand finale of what we've been organizing for the last 10 years, since 2012, which is the National Newsroom Contest, a live news anchoring and reporting competition of young journalists live here on stage. So we get the studio out of TV stations and we put it here. And in a race against time, our young journalists, 6 universities now, are going to showcase themselves. So again, we welcome you on Friday to come join us, and we see the talent that we have in this country. That pretty much brings my remarks to the end. If anything does not go well with this event, I take full responsibility, and I am very sorry in advance, and you bear with us. We've done a pretty good job to make sure it happens. But, things can happen. So, but if you just be vigilant, let's take care of each other when we're here. Let us know if you see something not going right so that we can put it into order. Take as many pictures as you can. Post Media Expo UG is the hashtag. Tweet about this. Let us trend. And we don't do this work alone. We work with partners. So the Expo is supported by 2 partners this year. One is the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung, who will be here on Friday. But today, specific to public service delivery reporting, I am very happy and very delighted to welcome Miriam Olsen. Please clap for Miriam Olsen, who will say a few words regarding this theme and why we're working on it together. And also yesterday and Sunday, we hosted an editors convention that brought rural and urban editors here to interact and learn from each other. And she'll give a brief about that. You thought I'd do it? Okay, we will work on it. But please put your hands up together for Miriam.
Thank you. Good morning. So, as Abbas said, I work for DW Academy. We are in partnership with MCI and make this event happen, amongst other things that we do. I would like to give a brief background so that you better understand where we come from and what we do. DW Academy is part of Deutsche Welle. DW, the international broadcaster, and I guess most of you know this broadcaster. What you might not know is what we do at DW Academy, because we have nothing to do with the broadcasting business of DW. Instead, we are a team of media experts, of consultants, of journalists all over the world. We work in more than 50 countries, and we are very passionate about strengthening constructive dialogue, strengthening access to information, and strengthening good journalism. So this is basically at the core of everything that we do. In Uganda, we work since 2014 with support from the German government, the Federal German Ministry of Economic Cooperation and Development, which is BMZ. And since 2017 already, we have been partnering with MCI. And I would like to take a moment to thank Abbas and also the whole MCI team, because, yes, please clap for them. They did not only open their doors today and they welcomed us to their home, they also opened their hearts, they opened their minds, and I feel this partnership is so special. It has ever since we worked together, but this year is very, very, very special to us at DW Academy because the topic of public service delivery is really something that we have been doing for a long time. In Uganda, we started in 2014. And we started with a survey. We asked young people from northern Uganda, from eastern Uganda, specifically the ones that are not in the cities, the ones that are very far apart in remote areas. And we wanted to know what are the media that you have access to. Out of the many media, maybe many, that you have access to, what are the media that you use? For what purpose? And most importantly, what is the information that is lacking? What is missing? What do the media not provide, and what would you wish them to provide for you? And the overwhelming response we got is, we need information that helps us to lead a better life. Everything related through health, agriculture, employment, infrastructure, you name it. And this is where this topic of public service delivery reporting developed. Ever since we try to strengthen the communication and information flows between these people in the very remote parts of the country and the media houses that serve them. We have a network of partner, mainly radio stations that we work with in different districts of Uganda. And part of what we have been doing is setting up a network of community reporters and local correspondents, because most of the media houses, of course, are based in the cities, and the journalists not necessarily have the means or the time to travel far away to really pick up stories from remote parts or remote villages. So how do we get these stories to the radio still so that the voices are not getting lost? The community reporters are not reporting like journalists, they are more like informants. They record vox pops, so audios. They let people in the community speak about the issues related to public service delivery, and these voices are embedded into the programs of the radio partners in different kind of programs. It can be local news, but it can also be talk shows. So we are focusing also on facilitating constructive dialogue and getting different people, their leaders, for example, the leaders that are responsible, together on the table with the citizens to discuss the issues that they have. We did that both on air but also in the communities. And we were quite successful. Many things changed with leaders who really also shared the passion for bringing their communities forward. And there were wells that have been built. There were, I don't know, pharmacies that were equipped with the medication that the people needed. There were teachers that showed up on time in school again, things like this. But at the same time, as we were very successful in this hyper-local level, we also realized that there is another gap. Because oftentimes the leaders we worked with, they said, you know, the community that brought this issue up really would like to focus and support solving it, but the funding that was promised never reached here, so I cannot do something about it. So out of this feedback that we got from the leaders, we said we have to also take this project onto a different level, on district level, on national level, and also engage the different stakeholders there, so that it's really, how do you say, like a joint effort. And of course, I mean, this is already being done, but we are supporting this with the network of media partners. And we started this year with the MCI Fellowship. The MCI Fellowship fellows this year received the very first one-week training on public service delivery reporting. You're the first of your kind, so clap for yourself. As Abbas said, yesterday we brought the editors together, editors from the capital here, from Kampala, and from big media houses, and editors from the different districts of Uganda who explored opportunities of collaboration. Because in order to really work together on the different levels, we have to also maybe overcome the obstacles that usually prevent us from collaborating, maybe competition, maybe some kind of fear or superstition or whatever it is that prevents us from working together. And we also try to explore what are the angles that we can take. Of course, it will not be, I think it's not realistic to say we are going to collaborate on a very big scale on all kinds of topics. That's not going to happen. But what are these small angles that we can work on? And this is something I hope that someone is able to share later, a summary of yesterday, so that we can really also take this, because there were some very interesting findings, and this is also going to continue, of course. But today, I think we take it even onto a bigger stage. Yesterday we had the editors. Today we have members of the academics, of the academia. We have SCSO members, representatives. We have the media, of course. We also have representatives of politics. And all of these different people are going to discuss, to open their minds, open their hearts, hopefully, and going to try to find solutions in order to promote effective public service delivery. So I'm super excited to see what is coming out of these 4 days that we have before us now. I wish all of you fruitful discussions. I really hope you are going to enjoy this event. Please, yeah, that's it. Please enjoy. Bye.
Whoa, a round of applause, everybody.
Thank you so much, Miriam, for giving us that foundation for the entire expo. The one key word she talked about was constructive conversation. And it was taking me to words like positive, productive. And as I'm saying this, Ishak being the poet he is, he must be creating a piece in his mind.
Wow. Anyways, that was really very insightful. Thank you so much, Miss Miriam, all the way from DW Academy. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. We still welcome you to the Media Expo 2022. It's a very big honor to be in front of y'all. Y'all look amazing. We have students from the different universities. My goodness, my oh my. And they're all representing, they're here for all the 4 days. And of course, being the start, we expect a lot of insightful conversations around the theme this year that we are having, facilitating effective public service delivery through journalism.
Yes. We would like to also recognize the different creators, media personalities in the room, critics in the room. I know some people here are very critical. But when I look at the lineup we have for the next panel, I get giddy and excited inside.
Yes.
We are going to be looking at the topic, building an inclusive nation. And I would like to introduce the panel for that discussion. One of the
moderator.
The moderator for that discussion. One of the biggest media personalities in the game. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for
Sami Wetala. Come on, everybody.
Good Good morning, everybody. When I say you, you say Ganda. You. When I say M, you say CI. M. My name is Sami Wetala. I like to think of myself as a storyteller. Sometimes I do tell stories in words written, and sometimes in words spoken. I also like to think of myself as a conversation starter. But today, I'm not here to start a conversation. I'm here to continue with a conversation that is all about building an inclusive nation. When this particular topic was handed over to me, the first thing that came to my mind was Christopher Barlow, the Ugandan poet who wrote the poem about two extraordinary nation builders that went about their day in building the Uganda they want, so to speak. And the people that are going to be joining me, I'm very honored and very happy and extremely humbled to be joined by distinguished ladies and gentlemen who I believe are nation builders, not like the PS, because when you look at our screens, our TVs, or you listen to radio, and you look at the discussions, be it past or present discussions on issues to deal with building this particular nation, you'll realize we always see the same faces. You will find you're seeing politicians. If not, you will see academicians, or you'll probably see, the who is who. Some people you even see on TV and you wonder, what exactly do they do? I do not have a problem with these people. I just have a problem with the fact that the majority of the people who are the youth are never really represented in this particular discussion. And that's why it's very important for us to be here and be a part of this discussion. It's very wise for us to have conversations that deal with the youth, the future generation, and I believe the future is now. Within our midst, we have people that, represent the 50s. My dad was born in the 50s, the late 50s. He's an independence baby. My mom was born in the 70s. I'm a 90s baby. My baby will be born, in the 2000s. So we have people of different generations all in the same workforce. So then again, you ask yourself, whose voice should we be listening to? Are you going to be listening to the same voice day in, day out? The same faces, they just shift them from one media house to the next, and the narrative seems to be the same? That narrative needs to change, and it starts today, because I am joined by those people whose bio is great, and I will not shy away from taking my time to re-echo the dopeness of their DNA and what they have done for this nation. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me introduce a lady who swept me by the way she plays with her voice, but also with her words. She's a malaika. She's an angel. She goes by the name Angel Kabera. A round of applause for Angel. Let me tell you something about Angel. Angel is a Soit, an experienced award-winning spoken word artist who tells people, and prides in doing so, stories through a fusion of music and poetry. She is disrupting the industry. She believes that humility is her temple, and my oh my, Christ is a God. Hashtag Soetry. Soetry.
To the world.
Soetry to the world, indeed. I mean, her bio is great. It's big, big. Also, I have the pleasure of recognizing a young gentleman who, when I was in school, stole my homework. Yes, this guy stole my homework, and that's why he became an animator, and I didn't. I would call him Ray, but for this particular conversation, I'll just call him Malinga. Raymond Malinga, ladies and gentlemen. He's the CEO of Creatures Company Limited, an animation studio based right here. He did graduate with a bachelor's degree in animation and visual effects in 2014 from Multimedia University in Malaysia. He directed and produced a multi-award-winning animated film, A Kalabanda 8, My Homework. As we speak right now, he is working with Disney. We're going to be talking about that and so much more later on. This particular gentleman, I don't even have words to introduce him because he's been my mentor. He's been my lecturer. He's been a friend, a father figure. He's just been a dope guy with dope vibes and great energy. He's a guy that I've been on stage with. I've had the privilege to be in his class, and he has set standards that I hope one day to even come close. You know him by the names of Philip Luswata. Yeah. If you've gone to the National Theatre, then you will agree with me that we need to have an auditorium named after him. Yes, he's done amazing things. I know he's a genius, and this country has not even tasted 30% of what he has to offer. So yes, Philip Luswata, it's such a pleasure to be with you. Okay, I have to take a pause on this, because for me, being with Dr. Sarah Sally, it's a dream come true. Sarah understands the world in a way normal people don't. She sees the world, yes, I know she has spectacles, but there's a way she sees the world that most of us don't, even if we have spectacles. And I know there are people here with specs, but the way she looks at the world is phenomenal. Sarah is an associate professor and dean, School of Women and Gender Studies, and the director, Center of Excellence in Notions of Identity at the Makerere University. Emphasis on the. She is a social scientist with a PhD in international health studies. She is an experienced researcher with vast experience in qualitative and quantitative research methods, including, but not limited to, surveys, social networks, analyses, and I can go on and on and on and on and on. Even in an hour, it won't be enough for me to reintroduce Dr. Sari. Pleasure, guys. First things first, I'm going to start by sharing these microphones. It's a pleasure to have you guys. I first want to understand, and I'm going to start with Dr. Sarah. Give us a scenario where you felt and you experienced something that you were like, no, this is not the Uganda I want. In your life.
Well, thank you very much, Sanya. And you're welcome, all our guests. Good morning, or is it good afternoon? I don't know. So there are many scenarios, but one of the scenarios I've always felt and experienced, this is not the Uganda I want, is when you go to hospital. And when you go to a public hospital, and you look at all those people who cannot access a hospital bed, and they have to sleep on the floor. And one of the things I do every morning when I go through the medical school is I sometimes park near the Cancer Institute. And you see the number of these cancer patients that cannot get a bed. They traveled from far thinking they were coming to the National Referral Hospital, but there's no space.
Yes.
So they are on the veranda. And you just say, my God, I hope I will not be on these verandas in a few years' time. So that's one of the things. And you asked for one, but we can tell you more as we go on.
I know. Angel.
Yes. My experience was with getting my national ID.
Wait, I thought you were 17.
No, I'm not 17.
Okay.
But thank you. So I remember emphasizing to my dad that I would not use any Gamba Nogu. I wanted to stop corruption and nepotism, so I said I'm going to stand in the line. I stood in the line for about 4 months, and I was like, you know what? You call who you have to call, because I needed a national ID to access a service in a hospital, and I was being denied a service because I didn't have a national ID.
Yes.
But I realized that our public service delivery systems are designed for the corrupt. Like, if you're not corrupt, you will not have access to these things. And that's where I saw there's a very big problem.
Gambanogo syndrome didn't work for you then, but it later did, right? After 4 months.
Unfortunately, yes.
It did. Fortunately, unfortunately.
Well, I don't even know.
Okay, Raymond.
It's an interesting one, eh? You stood in for 4 months.
4 months to get a national ID. How long did it take you?
I don't know, I think like a year or something.
A year?
Yeah, because like it was really, I went through something similar actually. So.
And Gambanogo again worked for you?
But for me, it's, I'm always, since I represent a group of people and an industry that is often overlooked,
yes,
I'm going to try my best to keep my answers representative of that industry. And so for me, it's when you're trying to get a gig or a job,
yes,
and someone says, in order to get this job, you have to give me something on the side.
Yeah.
And then you realize that the only reason why you didn't get the job is because, not because you're not the best person, but it's because you just didn't do what was necessary. So if you don't understand what I mean, I'm talking about corruption, right? and it happens a lot in my industry, and I've tried my best to like just resist from doing that,
yeah,
and to show my people that you can succeed without doing that. But it's not easy, you know? You grow really slowly because of that reason. And for me, that's, whenever I see that, that's a Uganda I do not want to
ever experience again.
No.
Philo.
Thanks, Sami. Do I have the same problem? Okay. Thank you, Sami. And I hope you push that agenda of having somewhere named.
We shall.
Well, for me, I'm going to approach the question from a very melancholic perspective. You know, bad things happen.
Yes.
Whether we want it or not. And sometimes it's good to celebrate the bad things that happen to us because they become lessons for better things.
Yeah.
But I'm going to share what has really intrigued me. When I was coming here today, I was thinking about facilitating effective public service delivery through journalism.
Yes.
So I kept thinking, how would I facilitate the same through theater, through acting, through my own craft? Then, just when you came and sat here, you said, we are talking about building an inclusive nation.
Yes.
That now has added to my problems. Because I asked myself, how do you build, again, talking like
Raymond,
from the perspective of my own industry, how do you build a nation that excludes you? How do you build a nation that is excluding you and actively doing so? I was reading one of those memes, Robert Mugabe memes, and this time he said that in Uganda, studying English is compulsory, while agriculture is optional. So they were saying that we speak good English and go hungry.
Yes.
Then I looked at, you know, when they invited me, I had gotten very excited. I prepared so much. Because there's so much really I want to say. So I look back at where the problem starts from. So, and I consider that if you want to study agriculture in Uganda,
yes,
and you also have an interest in information technology, so that you can market your agriculture. Our president has always told us that the future of Uganda is in agriculture. So you need information technology to be able to sell agriculture.
Yeah.
And you might also want to learn foreign languages to be able to reach wider markets, which is what our government is every day telling us. You might also want to study literature so that you can better express yourself.
Yes.
You can, better present your pitches. You might want to, study also add arts and crafts so that you are able to better package images of what your matoke or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But in our Uganda here, you cannot do that. Because out of all this agriculture, information technology, which you could study, foreign languages, local languages, literature, and all that, and you also need local languages to be able to reach your suppliers. Out of all that, you can only choose one. You can only choose one. So we are in a nation that is telling us we should build ourselves, while at the same time making it practically impossible for us to be able to construct ourselves. Because at the end of the day, you're telling me I need to, what's a must is I must study religion, I must study mathematics, I must study English, I must study physics, which of all those actually constructs me towards being a big influencer of public service delivery in my country. So, well, I just got intrigued. I don't know if I've made sense, but that's it.
You have. And on that particular regard, even as you look at the Uganda you do not want. Now, let us look at the Uganda that you want, and looking at you in your field, and how have you been able to create that particular awareness, knowing and bearing in mind of some of the works that you've done. At least I've had the opportunity of seeing crazy storms when it comes to plays. I happened to be in the same writing room with you when you were creating the campus, but you went on to do Makutano Junction, you went on to do Mpeke Town, and so many others. In all these plays and TV dramas that you've created, how have you created that particular awareness of the Uganda that Philo wants?
Well, again, I am a pessimist, and I have every right to be so. I want to marry a beautiful woman, whom I did. I want to be rich. I want to live in Muyenga. I want to live in Kololo. Yeah. I want justice. I want fairness. I want the best.
Yeah.
I want to have 10 children and be able to pay school fees for all of them. Those are all the things that I want. The reality, though, goes to the point on whether I can achieve them and how, for me, how as an active artist I am trying to facilitate these things.
Yes.
In my view, having been in the business I am in for as long as I have been, I have, again, unfortunately, I am pessimistic. We've done all those things you've talked about, which are talking about behavior change people's perception. We've tried all these things. We've done Makutano Junction, where you're talking about do things differently, see the world differently. But even as you work constructively to make people more critical, which is the Uganda I would want, a Uganda that is full of citizenry that are critical, that are analytical, that look at things and ask questions, that have answers, that have leaders who are not afraid of answering, who are not afraid of responding. However, this, from the perspective of people like us who are in the business of mindset change, who are in the business of changing perspective or affecting perspectives, it has been practically impossible, because how do you talk of being able to facilitate effective public delivery of a new Uganda, or a new Uganda I want, when the people I am talking to are not empowered to understand me? Look at what has been happening very recently, where the president sat up and said, oh, in this Uganda, for us to move forward, we must be scientific. We must be scientific. And the same thing I'm telling you, literature, local languages, all the things that make me powerful, all the things that make me critical, all the things that make me ask questions, all the things that help me to market myself, all the things that help me to be a stronger and more participating, practical Ugandan, all those things are optional. I cannot have access to them. In the same way, you as a journalist and me as an artist do not have access to these things. Even the people we talked to are also not empowered in the same way. It's like there's a deliberate move to build an uncritical and analytical mass, an analytical society in Uganda. So that when you make a play, my friend Abe Muchiwi, I did a show, Shame on Your Hand, recently at the National Theatre. And my friend Abe Muchibi had another show down at Bat Valley. So we meet. I'm suffering with no audience. And he's having full house for a month now. So he tells me now, Philip, your problem is you are putting in too much intelligence in your plays. My play, he told me clearly that my play, I sat there, I said, I want a play. I don't have a play. So I said, what do? I got actors, we go together, workshop what happened to us during lockdown. And after lockdown, we advertised the play. And I think many of you heard of that play. It was a lockdown play. I don't know, Lockdown Kakongoli. It had a very weird name. I may have this shame on my hand. Don't do it.
But his was totally sold out.
Yeah, it was totally sold out for 2 months. So he told me, this is what Ugandans want. Don't make Ugandans overthink. Do something simple, get out, make your money, and get out of it. Otherwise, you continue making those plays, you continue suffering, you continue being melancholic, pessimistic, and sad. But then one thing that he told me that was very telling, I apologize for over-hogging the microphone. One thing that he told me that was very telling, he told me, but there's one point where I got really intrigued. There's one man who kept coming and watching my play, and he was in suit, his play, that Kakongoli or whatever it was. He came 3 times. On the 3rd time, he told Abe, come, I want to speak to you, sir, if you give me time. So he told Abe, man, you are a visionary. This play is deep. So Abe looked at it, it's deep. I didn't make it to be deep. Where is the depth in my play? So, but he didn't accept. He said, you know, this is exactly what Uganda is today. People are consuming anything, accepting anything. We are running this way, running that way, asking no questions, being confused. And that's in your play. So whoever has not watched and seen the message, I came 3 times because the first 2 times I didn't understand it. But now I have got it. And there, Abe had meaning in his plan. He said, oh, yeah, that's what I intended. Though it wasn't. But at the end of the day, it tells you that we are living in futility as long as, our government does not, actively choose to empower us to be critical and analytical as a people, which is the Uganda I would want.
Okay, the Uganda that we want. Sarah, allow me to call you that. You've swum in the waters of social anthropology in one way or another. You preoccupy yourself on matters gender. When it comes to the Uganda we want, and in your field, especially being, somebody that sits with young men and women, how have you been able to visualize, and materialize, so to speak, the Uganda that Sarah wants?
Oh, well, thank you very much. We actually deal with that every day, and I don't think we've really found answers. But I'm going to give you experiences from what I engage with daily as a teacher. And one of the things, as I stand before my class, and one of my classes, Gender and Politics, has close to 300 people in the day class and maybe 200 in the evening. So that means I really struggle with marking. Yeah. But one thing that amazes me as each set of students come in and go, I keep asking ourselves, so where is our future? And why do I ask? The young people don't pay much attention to what you're saying. They actually don't need to know the too much Luzungu that Philip has in his plays. Yes. People want short things, very easy to understand, and that goes. The other thing, you introduced me as a person who chairs the Center of Excellence in Notions of Identity. And indeed, next year, we are planning to hold a conference of what does it mean to be African in Africa, as opposed to being an African. Okay, what Frantz Fanon spoke about of black skin, no, white skins, black skins, white masks, something like that. Yeah. But basically, the issue is younger people are not very much in touch with Uganda, actually. Okay? So you have younger people whose vision is actually out there, and yet there's a lot of opportunity within, but they are very detached. And my question has always been, how do we get these people to get back in touch with their society? How do we get Ugandanness to build, to be centenary? He's called Centenary. He came and presented, and I was happy with his T-shirt, with his shirt, his jersey, whatever the younger people call it. But how do we get Uganda in, or our culture into some of these things? I mean, we can just give an example of those of us here on the podium. I mean, I have a Ugandan bracelet. All of you have the Kenyan one, those of you who have. And you keep wondering, and by the way, when you walk on the street, people have more of Kenyan and Tanzanian, hardly Ugandan. Very few you'll get in Uganda. And my question is always, are we so bad a brand that we actually don't want to associate? Or is it just about being cool that you traveled and everything foreign is exotic? But anyway, what is the Uganda we want? First of all, it is clear biology or demography is real. Many of us will not be around in the next 40, 50, many years. But you people are going to be here. So if you're going to be here, what are you going to do about the Uganda that you'll have here? You need to think critically. This is not just a thing of MCI. I don't know whether we are having journalism awards, but it is a very critical question. This country is not going to go away. The people are not, we are not the last people to occupy this space. So what is the kind of society we want to build? One thing that saddens me as a person who works in the university is how difficult it is to rally younger people to do a cause free of charge. And career, if you don't pay, you will not even get students in a voluntary campaign. And of course, that has ended up having a faculty which is disengaged from students. I know you do have some few ones who come and are there, oh, what is the promotion now? We are going to do it. But the majority, whether you're talking about the Students' Guild or everything, everything's driven by money. So then that creates a disjuncture between the old who should be passing on the baton to the younger people. So the younger people cannot learn from the old because that relationship needs to be mediated by finance. And then the old people don't have, like me, don't have the finance to provide. But you think, oh, there's this good idea. It could provide you with an opportunity. Maybe if you come here free of charge, you could get to meet these people who you would not meet in your day-to-day life. But we are not having younger people see life like that. Maybe we just don't understand them. Maybe we grew up in a different era. Maybe it's the practicalities of life. But I mean, we walk to all these places doing free things, and somehow they did propel us. So each time I look and engage with younger people, I do get worried. I also get worried that at the time we were getting independence, the people who drove Africa's independence were this age group. Okay? They are the people who thought ideologically there must be a change. There must be a shift. But what are people of that similar age group doing today? It's social media, it is Snapchat, it is things which Instagram, they are very good, by the way. I'm on all of those accounts, so no one should say
what's your handle? What's your handle?
Just now I'm on all of them. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Twitter, I'm not on Snapchat, but I'm on Instagram.
Nice.
And so all those things which go with Sarah Sally, just look, you'll always find my picture there. So they are very good things to promote ourselves, but beyond promoting ourselves, what else should we use them for? We happen to live at a time where information access is very, very easy and very wide. Actually, you have the capacity to achieve much more than those who lived before you. So it is very, very important to use this, but if only we could stop having everything mediated by cash, it would help the continuity to occur. So let us have a very young, articulate, and informed and engaged public. That's the Uganda I want to see, because when I retire, you are going to be my leaders, and I want to be sure that I'm being led by the right people. Thank you.
Nice one. You've talked about just how finances play a very crucial role in regards to just how the youth today preoccupy themselves and with what things they actually do. With us, we have Angel here. She's never really moved by money when it comes to her performances. It's usually the passion that she has that I really like about you, Angel. But then again, let me understand, as a Soet, have you been able to mirror the society? of the Uganda you want?
As a Sowetan, I really do try to refrain from mirroring the society.
Why is that?
Because the society is, well, we're not where we're supposed to be. You know, a mirror is a direct reflection of the society. And as you can hear, for example, from what Mr. Luswata said, the bar for content is so low. It's basically on the floor.
Yes.
We have youth who are taking up narratives that are not their own. You know, we are driven by consumerism, Western capitalism, Western feminism, all these agendas that are not our own. So I don't really, yes, I am reflecting
yes.
society, but in a way that is going to incite some sort of change and provoke people to question why it is they believe this, why it is they act this way. If you say, you know, shrines are bad, is it because shrines are bad and you believe shrines are bad, or
yes.
because you saw it on Twitter and so shrines are bad? So I would say I do try and reflect society, but in a way that's going to cause us to think about these things. Because for me, an ideal, the Uganda I want is where we own the narrative. And right now, we don't own the narrative. We're just repeating what we hear from different sources. Yeah, so that's what I do through Sowetan.
You actually believe that the audience that we have today, they are not ready for the kind of content the enlightened men and ladies that we have on this particular panel can be able to put out?
I think they're ready, and I think the onus is on us.
The creatives.
The creatives, all of us here, to sort of dictate what is fun, what is cool. Because at a certain, for example, when we look at the creative arts, what sells in this world is sex. So sex, money, and power.
Yes.
But who is glorifying sex, money, and power? It is the artists, it's the musicians, it is the playwrights, the filmmakers. And so we influence the audience to think, oh, this is cool.
Yeah.
But if we all stopped and said, no, we're going to, and I'm not saying all our movies are about climate change and corruption, Kwame Nkrumah everywhere.
Yes.
But if we can put our heads together and see how we can embed some constructive conversation in the subconscious mind of the audience. Because the most dangerous thing I think that is happening is these things are seeping into our subconscious. Yeah, you're consciously watching and you're African, you have your values, but if you're exposed to this content for like 10 years, it becomes normal, and that's what you aspire towards. And I think the fault is ours. We need to stop. And you know what she said? We're caving into the material. We need bread and butter. It is very
That's very
important.
true, yeah.
Kids need to go to school. I need to buy dresses and whatever. But if I am compromising my craft, then I think that is a very dangerous thing. We set the pace as storytellers.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, an animator here is a pace setter. Raymond, they have talked about the society that we live in. I like the fact that each at least, they have tackled on one or the other thing, be it politicians, be it, the creatives, or just the society in general. When it comes to you, it seems that we have a government and probably an opposition that does not really understand the place of the creative in the community. I want to know, in your world as an animator, how have you been able then to ensure that we have and we get to experience, be it, emotionally or creatively, for lack of a better word, the society that you want?
What's really interesting about this is I'll regardless of what you're going to ask me, I was going to answer this question in this way.
Yes.
And it's about positioning. I've spoken about this before.
Yeah.
And it's something that I've thought about for a while. Like, guys, I make cartoons for a living in Uganda. Let's first take a moment and think about that, right? I'm like,
it's happening.
What am I doing? Half of the time people are like, what are you doing? And it's been quite a journey, And over the period of time that my company has existed and the things that we've managed to achieve, I started building this idea of how do I position myself in this country? What do people see me, what do they see my profession as? Like, half of the time people don't even know what they want to, what they can do with me, you know? You make cartoons, congratulations, good for you, you know? What are cartoons for? These things that we see running around on TV that babysit your, your children. And I started thinking about, one, positioning. How do I position myself and my profession in the minds of the people? And that's why I'm always excited to be on panels like this. And that is for you to understand what animation and visual effects can do that most of these other industries cannot do. And so we're sitting here, we're in a journalism hub, and journalists are very good at reporting what has happened or what happened recently. But then when they start talking about what could happen, it starts becoming a bit fuzzy because you're like, in about 3 years, this thing will look like this, right? But you can never, you're not able to visualize that thing. And what I can do as an animator is that we have the power, I actually think it's a superpower. We have a blank canvas. We can say, I can take what you're thinking of and I can bring it into existence for all to see. And I think that that's a very huge step for the mindset and the mental shift for the entire society, right? Because in Africa, it seems like when people can't see things, they just don't believe they're going to happen, you know? They're like, no, where's the money? Show me the money now. Or where is this? Show me this. And if you can't show people that there's going to be a hospital there, right, in some way, if you can't put it in their minds, let's say you're trying to tell them, we've cleared this land and we're going to build a multi-mega superstructure. People are like, sure, we shall see in 10 years. Those are the kind of responses you'll get. But as an animator, I have positioned myself and my team to look for people who are trying to do things like this, who are trying to change society and say, I can help you visualize that thing, you know? And by doing so, you start getting very interesting results. Like we did an animation, it was a very short explainer video for a study in, it was an HIV study along the coast of Mombasa. And they came to us because they were struggling to convince mostly the men to go and get tested for HIV. And it was very interesting. Like what we did is that we just did a short clip to show them that just because you do a test doesn't mean that you have HIV, which was the problem, right? And then they saw an uptick of people going and taking the test after that. And it's just a short video, 1 minute, you know? And that just transformed people's minds. And I think that if you use that superpower and actually use it in other ways, like all these problems that we're talking about right now, we can easily, I wouldn't say easily, but we can start to see a shift in the way people are more, let's say, accepting or willing to engage in these discussions that shift the actual narrative of where we want to go as a country. So I think like, I just wanted people to understand what animation can do, what it does, what I'm doing, and one of the things that, just to add on to that, one of the things that I do is that every time I try to create a product, I try my best to make sure that it has some level of grounding in Uganda so that it pulls in the local population. But then I make sure that it has some form of global appeal because at the end of the day, we are entering a global village. But the thing is that our comparative advantage is that I know how to be Ugandan better than anyone else out there. So I use that. So
I know how to be a Ugandan better than anybody out there, which leads me to the next discussion. Philo, I mean, for the years you've spent in the world of theater and film and academia, you would have chosen to do anything else in your life, and you'd still have contributed towards building an inclusive nation. Just let us understand, why did you choose that particular career?
Well, if you talk to my wife, she will tell you I made the worst choice ever. It is frustrating. It is thankless. I said I'm a pessimist, so you just have to bear with me. It is thankless. But I would say this thing chose me. I didn't choose it. Sometimes you don't choose to want to be the one to speak out. When we were in school, there was always that guy who would be caned every day for making noise in class. Every time they would put the book of noisemakers, the fellow is there. And he also tries hard not to be in the list. He doesn't know. Even the man said, "Wabachi mwana wange, wabachi kwe." So I would say I am that kid who, if I'm not thinking, if I'm not trying to say it, if I'm not, once I see something, I see a different perspective to it. I don't want to see it the way everyone else is seeing it. And that's why I've always been the one to question why they used to call us Musiru Dara Dara. When I did the course I studied, MDD, it was Musiru Dara Dara. And at that time, it was even quite weird because we used to have those costumes for dancing, and we had some weird yellow shorts that looked like prison shorts. So that when you're in the practicals, that was before you came. So that when you're in the practicals, you know, you have to jump and very comfortably. So that's what I came into from a background of SMAC, where people came to study engineering, and then you're passing by MDD and you see Ruswata jumping up and down like a cockroach. But, you know, that's what gave me excitement. I don't say I want to change the world. I don't say I want to be different. I just say there's an explosion in my head, so much that if I'm not always giving it out, you know how many projects we've worked on together that have never gotten anywhere. They are just there in the shelf. But we know they are there, and we are happy we tried. So and maybe journalists also have the same problem like I have, that same disease, that you see something, you know, you can't, your lips are quivering, you need to say it. And I'm sure even my brother Raymond has the same problem. There's always this blundering fellow whom they call a victim, whom they call a protagonist, always messing up or an antagonist. And then there's always this hero-like guy who comes up with the correct news. Stop planting beans this way. Stop defecating in the bush. But this guy has believed really tough that if my fishes mix with my mother-in-law, it's going to be a big problem. That kind of intelligence came from somewhere. It came from somewhere. No, but the way I came from somewhere. No, but the way I teach script writing, the way I've taught creating characters, the way I have made behavior change drama has been based on a construct that might not be ours at the end of the day now, that in retrospect, when you grow up, as you mature, you start seeing things differently. When I've looked at our folk tales, the Wakaima, for lack of an English word, you know, Uganda is very rich. It can have 100 meanings for the same. Well, no, Waizeka is bad in English. Shrewd, I think that's the word. Shrewd. The characters, the heroes of our folk tales were always shrewd. You'll find the mouse. There's this story I like to tell about the mouse, how he convinced Wanjovu that let's carry this tree. You carry the small part, which is the trunk, and me, I'm going to carry the leaves, which are many. So what Wakaima did, he just sat on the leaves and Wanjovu would carry. Then he would jump down and say, "Tuumulem, tuumulem." And they would rest and say, and Wakaima got home. Fine. And that's the character we are celebrating. Characters that are building, characters that are thinking for themselves, characters that are shrewd, characters that have solutions. But the kind of drama that I've been creating in those Makutano junctions and Peke towns, now when I look back, you're saying maybe this is a point in my life, and it's good I'm saying it in front of a journalism class, because even you need to look at who are the characters I am telling stories about. Are those the characters I need to be telling stories about? Like now, when you see what journalists are doing, when we were growing up, the heroes of our media were Bale Francis, they were Christine Mawadri, they were Peter Sulike Kisa, they were Bart Kakoza. But now, the media movers, the custodians of communal wisdom now, whom I share a space with, are Masolo Queen, they are Bad Full Figure, they are Kefko, they are Nakankaka. Those are the people that I am now sharing a space with when it comes to, sharing, archiving communal wisdom. That's where we are. Now that we have reached to that point, and I'm sure even you guys, when you go out, it goes back to that thing of being critical and analytical. What am I listening? That, even the journalists, even you, I've seen you hosting these people on your shows. And these are the heroes. These are the people we look up to now. Have I done my job? I doubt I have. Have I done my job? No. I'm probably this is a point where such a discussion becomes really important in helping us change our perspectives. And what I'm leaving you with is, who is the Ugandan hero? Who is the Ugandan hero? The person that we should all be talking about. Is it the Wakaima? Or is it the blundering Kapere, who is always defecating and doing this, and then at the end of the day, we are happy when he stops, and Kapere and his wife walk down the road. Oh, I'm happy, my dear wife, now. Is that the guy we want to celebrate?
I think this is where we bring social anthropologists to make us understand the kind of society that we live in. It seems we are celebrating Ugandan heroes that seem to be hashtag, the Masolo Queens of today. Why is that? Why do we celebrate these people? Why do we listen to them? Why do we follow them on different social media platforms?
Yes, thank you very much. I was just enjoying Philip's lecture. I thought I was about to take notes, then you asked me a question. So maybe I'll look for Philip and we talk more. Because what he's talking is pertinent, and you're asking from an anthropological perspective, why do we have this? One, we have to understand that society changes and society transitions. I know many times when we talk about Africa and we want to imagine an Africa before colonialism, now you cannot go back to that kind of Africa. It has changed. Yeah. He has given a very good analogy of the times he grew up in, but also when we look in anthropological literature, including the stories he has said, but also including the writings, we actually celebrated different things. Let me just speak on the topic of gender that I teach on a daily.
Yes.
What are the stories told of women in African folktales, but also in the people who wrote before? These women were wise. These women were queens. These women were leaders. These women did some, even when you come, for example, to the way our traditional kingdoms are held, are organized, you don't just find the king is the only one who has power. Yeah. If you look like at Buganda, you have the king, then the king also had a sister who is installed with him, then the queen mother also has some kind of power. Then the king had these very many wives from different clans, but each clan had a certain kind of symbolism in the kingdom.
Yes.
For example, the one from the Mbogo clan was the equivalent to the Minister of Finance, so everybody belongs, so they were organized differently. Now, today what do we have as symbols of femininity? It is that coy girl who acts like she knows nothing and is dating one very powerful guy and crying around and really acting naive. And you say, where did we lose it? Okay? So, I mean, and this is not just about Uganda, by the way. You can even look at the original Nigerian writers and all that kind. There is a kind of wit celebrated about femalehood. Yeah. It's not just what you see in Nollywood, looking nice, looking great, dating a powerful guy, to the extent that sometimes even our students tell us what's the purpose of dating a poor guy when there are experienced guys there. So that's the society. Yeah. So we are celebrating #Queens because those are also the times. And why is that the time? Because there have been disjunctures in continuity. Of course, colonialism creates the first disjuncture. Yes. But somehow our people are resilient because they had grown up in African culture, so that even when they went into the white man's education system, they were able to use those skills to write from their point of, what did he call, grounding. And so you had the Okonkos, you had the river between by our neighbors next door, the Gugi Wathiongos. So that continues. But as it continues, what then happens to the world? We are captured by a neoliberal agenda, where suddenly the subjects that give people the spirit of a nation are taken out. So history must go, politics must go, literature, waste of time, all of those kinds of things. So what do we replace them with? Physics, chemistry, and biology, and by the way, those are very important. We need to go to the moon. Yeah. But also they are replaced by entrepreneurship, they are replaced by ICT, and all these kinds of things, and you're told they are basic fundamentals in life. The truth of the matter is there's no education system which is value neutral. Everything is culturally grounded, okay? Whether you're talking about business, whether you're talking about media, whether you're talking, whatever you're talking about, even health, just a simple thing as health. You see, that's why, just take an example of our delivery systems. In Africa, delivery was a communal affair. If a woman was giving birth, the aunties, everybody was there. In the modern system, it is a private affair. So there are issues of consent, there are issues of privacy, there are issues. So you have, there's nothing which is value neutral. So we need to find a way of sustaining that which we are. But as we continue throwing away everything in the name of development, we are just going to continue playing catch-up and mimicking and trying to, yeah, because now the whites are doing this, we also need to do this. You need X number of scientists to develop a nation. You train them. By the time you train them, the white people will be saying, actually, you need people who are culturally grounded like this. You need media specialists. So all those things that gave Philip an identity are the same things which gave us an identity. And unfortunately, now we are stuck with a continent where the young people are struggling to leave the continent. Why? Because they don't have an identity. They have not gone through a process which made them belong. That process traditionally would have been homes and culture and whatever. That was taken up by the way our modern systems of living. So the remaining things are the things we pick from class, literature, history, all of those things, but we have also trashed that. So we have people just existing, people just living, and we convince ourselves that we are global citizens. Every global citizen belongs somewhere. So what happened that we are celebrating that is competing with the Masolo Queens for space? Those are the people who have arisen out of the difficult times. They have been the resilient ones, okay? And so those are the people you'll celebrate. You will find maybe some drug addicts, some criminals, and all of those kinds of things. But probably we need to read more. We need to, the arts. And actually, this is where now we need the creative arts. The creative arts, I know, Philip, they don't pay, but they are what give us the soul of the nation. They are what give us the spirit of who we are. Through, she talked about reflection. Through the creative arts, we see ourselves and we reflect. Now, those could be drama, it could be media, it could be, one of the papers I teach is identity and representation and the role of media in representing. And what she said is very, very important. If you're going to represent the society as simply a society of love, sex, and money, that is actually what you'll get. So those who trained as love guys and as whatever, hot babes, celebs, those are people who will trend, not people who are trying to act well and try to show where we should go as a country. So I think anthropologically we need to map these disjunctures and be intentional because it shows that these disjunctures are having impacts on generations. So if we want the future generation to be more focused, how can we be intentional about it today? Thank you very much.
Wow, fantastic. I still want to understand from you when it comes to identity. We are talking about building an inclusive nation. And when we have to talk about that, then there are certain things that remain very key to us in terms of gender representation, in terms of representing people from different ethnic backgrounds, different people with different cultural beliefs, and people with different religious beliefs as well. But then again, drawing it towards the art form, where Ray and Philip and obviously Angel sit. When you look at the movies that we're experiencing right now, especially from the West, they seem to have, woken up. When you look at, how many of us have watched Woman King? Yeah, you've watched Woman King. If you look at Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, we are seeing women in tech. We are seeing women in defense and in security. When you draw from your own, research, when you look at the kind of art form that our creatives, are making today, where are they positioning the woman?
Yes, thank you very much. Indeed, where are they positioning the woman? If you go for Philip's plays like Shame Upon Your Hand, this is the play which to me was a play against sexual harassment and gender-based violence. So you do have people like that trying to address these matters. But as he explained earlier, that's the reason he did not fill the theater. Now, the auditorium. Now you have most of the creative arts, and she presented it very well. Most of the things you watch, whether you're watching Yoga Wood and the rest, I don't watch much TV, but the few times I've watched it, the few times I've listened to songs, the woman they're singing about is a light-skinned woman who has a smooth skin. If you pour milk on her, it just pours, and then I will drink it. The Chakweras of this world. Then, of course, you have the dumb house girl in the plays, and who the head of the house or the man is hitting on and cheating with on the wife. Then you have the wife. So most of the representations of femininity are very negative. You are either a docile woman or you are an incompetent woman according to male constructions of an ideal woman, one who is always available for the man to service the man and do all those kinds of things, one who should not even cry when the husband cheats on her, and all those kinds of things. And of course, even when you go beyond the creative arts, the narrative is that society is problematizing the empowered woman. You go to our churches, and I go to a born-again church, all sermons are against these women who are empowered, the gender-sensitive women. That's the reason we have street children. And they are failing to realize that everyone has changed. The men are changing as the women are changing. So you may find she's looking after families, extended family members. Maybe she has a sick parent. She has to work. She has to make money. But you see, people think women are supposed to be there, docile, to be looked after, which again is a post-colonial creation. It's not very much a pre-colonial creation. So you have that. So the way we represent, and we are talking about building an inclusive nation. Now, when you're talking about building an inclusive nation like Uganda, or when we talk about African identities, we begin by appreciating that Africa is a mosaic. You're not going to have a unique German identity or French identity like those countries are formed. If you come to Uganda, we are 64 ethnicities. Yeah. There even yet 8 more still to be documented and included in the constitution. So you already have that. There's no single ethnic group single language spoken by more than 5% of the population in this country. So we are all minorities. So we are a mosaic, we are a tapestry. So if we are talking about inclusivity, we need to know what are the differences amongst us and how do we factor those differences in the way we plan, in the way we organize. We have differences based on gender, male and female. We have differences based on age. We don't have any social policy for old people in this country, okay? No care services. Of course, they tried to do an old people fund, SAGE, but was also donor funded. I don't know whether it's going to continue. Then we have no space for other tribes which we consider minorities. And you did talk about them. We grew up with radio and TV, and most of the local drama was about how other people spoke Luganda badly. Now, should Anacholi speak Luganda perfectly? So why should we make fun of Anacholi speaking Luganda with the Anacholi accent, or a Mutoro speaking Luganda with a Toro accent, when actually Baganda can't speak Rutoro or Acholi? So we have those kinds of things that we need to focus on. We spend more time having dominant tribes constructing other tribes negatively. And that's what you see a lot in our theater, okay? Whenever our theater goes local, it is actually misconstructing, stereotyping other tribes. Now, that's not a way you build an inclusive nation. And that's why Uganda will remain tribal and conflicting and paying attention of who is in which office, what is the second name. Because those things matter. They organize our day-to-day life. They organize how we are stereotyped, how Baganda are destined to be thieves and robbers and Batoro still Sigiris. But all this is coming from where? Theater and the creative arts. So if we are to be intentional about inclusivity, I think those of you in the creative arts, whether you're writers, literary artists, and the rest, should pay attention to what are the things which divide us. And as a country, we know how these divisions can actually be fatal. And how do we build an inclusive... it is not that the only way you can do a local play is by stereotyping another tribe negatively. There can be a way of there must be a way of acting a local play, and the different Ugandan tribes you have brought on board are all celebrated, are all cherished as clever people, as wise people, as people who deserve a space, a positive narrative in your plays and in your literary works. You cannot only say you can survive as a writer by bashing another tribe, by bashing another gender, but beyond that, can we also see more plays on people with disabilities, people with mental health? And each time you look at the papers, people are announcing their relatives who have gotten lost because they have mental health issues. And the announcement is, when you find him, temukuba, okay? And this is the fear we all live with. When you have a mentalist, a person who has mental health issues, or if we ourselves ever have a mental health issue, that the Ugandan reaction to a person who doesn't look like them is beat, because that person must be a thief. He's trying to beat. So can we have more of this so that we educate people that not everyone who looks different from us is a bad person, but is someone worth celebrating. In short, there's no single narrative. Let us celebrate all narratives like we have there, change the narrative. Thank you.
Wow, nice, nice. And for me, again, the onus, much as, Sarah did talk about, Angel did talk about, the role of the creatives in changing that narrative. Again, I ask myself, and this is a question I've had with Abbas. When MCI started, if you look at the different concerns they're preoccupied, themselves with, from matters on gender to refugee, and now we're looking at public service delivery, I've always wondered, why can't we have a light on arts journalism? Because it seems we are, and which is okay, by the way, having journalists that understand the political field. They understand what's going on with the climate and the health sector and issues to do with gender, all important. But when it comes to covering the arts, there is a gap there. And that's where I bring Angel. How can we be able to fill that gap? Yeah? How can we have journalists and the artists understand each other, and how this particular, like he talked about, how journalists may not be prophets as artists are in terms of predicting the future?
So before I go into answering that question, I just have a little comment.
Please.
I am not a specialist in anthropology or whatever, but I want to just supplement on what she said about representation and inclusion. And I want to use the examples of Woman King and Wakanda.
Yeah.
I think, first of all, we are taking on the term inclusion and representation because it's now a trend. On a board, we must have women to show that we are inclusive. We must have a sign language interpreter because we're inclusive. But inclusion is different from representation. Representation is more visual. Yeah, we have women here, but inclusion, I would use the example of Woman King, I think, is an outlier when I look at the film industry, because most times when we are depicting strong women, we depict them as the manliest woman in the room. yes? But Woman King shows that even in your femininity, we can have an army. We can have people with long acrylic nails using them as weapons. And this is why, because we have women included in the production. That production cast is a balance of female producers and male producers.
Yes.
Then we have Wakanda, the most recent one, and no shade, it's a nice movie. But this main character, I don't know her name, but
Yuri.
she's portrayed as a man, like, you get what I mean? And the production team of Wakanda is all male. You get it? So there's representation in Wakanda, but is there inclusion like we see in Woman King, yeah? So we must say words and mean what we say and practice what we preach. Then in regards to creatives are reporting on the arts and all of that, I think collaboration is important.
Yeah.
We actually had a session on film journalism, and we had actors and journalists in the room here, and they were going at it, you know. As creatives, we have this celebrity complex, and we don't want to work with journalists, but we need these people to spread the message that we are here, come to this play and get this information, put us on TV, and also share in our techniques of information dissemination, because we are all doing the same thing. The arts, in Uganda, we have a very, again, I don't think this is our own. I am convinced this is just consolidation of power, because I think the arts are it breeds a culture of being critical, asking questions. We're not in labs repeating that gravity is 10 ms per, I don't know, or, you know, those things. We're not in labs repeating already discovered things. We are questioning social structures, and some people don't like that. So the techniques that we have as artists can improve the media space. Now from Sowetry, I don't know if you guys know, but the human attention span is 15 seconds, right? A news bulletin is how many seconds? Like, I don't know, an hour, 30 minutes? So we as creatives, we are thinking of how can we appeal to someone's senses, and how can we make the most of this attention span? You guys are, sorry, the journalists are, let's just disseminate. But if we put our heads together, we can disseminate, but also appeal to people's emotions and senses in such a way that this information is being put to use, and not just ear in, ear out, you know? So collaboration is very important. Yeah. And also like this, the way we are, the creatives, the academia, and the professionals in the field need to sit and see how we can make this field, impactful. Yes.
Wow, fantastic. A round of applause for our panelists, ladies and gentlemen. Allow me invite your thoughts and comments and questions to the panelists right about now. Yes, we do have a hand there. Big Shaq, if you'd help me, just pass over the microphone. Lady in green. We're going to take about 3 questions from the floor. Please direct your questions to either of the panelists. Tell us your name, your uni, and direct the question.
Thank you. My name is Linda
Yes, Linda.
Mtunje, and I'm going to ask both as a creative and a student of journalism.
Nice. From which university?
Cavendish University. My first concern is to Mr. Malinga. First of all, Kakalabanda Ate My Homework was a very beautiful animation. My question is accessibility. I remember I just came across it on YouTube, and I took the initiative to call you and ask you what happened. Why can't we access this? And you said, we're going to put it out. To date, I'm still waiting. It's like 2 years down the road. So for the creatives, where is the accessibility? Mr. Philip Lesotho, you're complaining about people not coming to your shows. Where is the marketing? Where is the accessibility? Because I do believe, and I strongly believe, that as creatives, we can nurture and form the minds of people. We can actually push them into analytical and critically thinking and shape thoughts, which the Sorist talked about, how you tell the stories and appeal to people. But then if you are not packaging it and not making it accessible, it's saddening that I go to a Ugandan cinema and I can't find a Ugandan movie showing. So as a Ugandan, how do I support the Ugandan industry? The next question is going to come around the depth of stories. You're creatives, I'm a creative. Journalists, I believe, are also creatives, because we all are in the business of telling stories. We are all in the business of informing and shaping, depending on where you want to come from. So how do we come back to the African story? The African story has lost form, has lost meaning. And a person in, I feel for us, the millennials and the Gen Z, because we are so detached from African stories so much because our parents either got lost in the profession that they never told us, and we grew up in the era where being African felt lame, for lack of a better word. So my question is, how do we go back to the African story? Because Ngugi wa Thiong'o says it, however fast a pumpkin runs, it cannot forget its roots. Neither, however fast can a river flow, forgets its source. And we seem to be forgetting our roots. We seem to be forgetting our source. I don't mean that we should drop all the modernity, but we shall chase cloud, like we love to say, if we don't know what we stand for. If it is about what the Western media is showing that we want to chase and forget who we are, then we are going to remain in this disevil. So where does journalism and creativity and the creative industry come to reshape the nation for a better Uganda that we'd love to see? Thank you.
Okay, we'll respond to those questions before we get any more questions. Ray, you want to go first?
First of all, thank you. And I don't remember the call, but thank you for calling. So accessibility, your question was around accessibility. And because you just discovered Calaban did my homework on YouTube, right? Am I correct in understanding that's what you asked? Okay, so I need to frame something that maybe I didn't frame when you called me, right? Which is, A Calaban did my homework was a shot in the dark, right? And one that I still, up to today, I'm working on a Disney film right now, but A Calaban did my homework is still my greatest achievement because it was just a shot in the dark in a country that where something like that should not be acceptable if you ask people around, right? So what we did is that we had a premiere in 2017, December 15th, and we had about 300 people show up for that premiere. And we then put it on YouTube 3 days later, December 18th. And what that film was meant to do was to prove a point that we can do some of these things here. And also to expose a lot of what we didn't know. So one of the things we didn't know is how far could it reach with our minimum budget, you know? how much interest would this actually garner? And it's a testimony to the success of the film that you did find it and you did call me, actually, that it did reach you regardless. But what I will say is that that film was set out to, first of all, set up a team. I started that project with my brother and I in a garage. I must also explain to you guys that I did my university in Malaysia and I worked at an animation studio there, and I quit my job to come back here because, as I like to say, Uganda was calling. I think it's a responsibility for people who are professional and have garnered some amount of knowledge and are abroad to come back and transform the industry. And so I came back with a hope that this was going to work. And we started that project 2 people, we finished it 7. People that I trained on that project. So when you watch a Calabar Date My Homework, if you haven't watched it, that's done by people here who are trained in Uganda. It's completely a Ugandan production, you know. So we proved that we could do that. We marketed that film ourselves. We got 300 people to come for our premiere. And that's a rough estimate, around 300 people. And then we put it on YouTube. We got into we represented Uganda and got about 15 nominations, 7 awards across the world. And now I got recognized and I'm working on a Disney production. So the reason why we haven't done anything for 2 years is because we are now working on things like, where is our skill level, you know? How many more animators can we create? When I release another film for you, I want not 300 people to show up. I don't want you to call me to find out, where was this thing? I want you to be there, you know? And we've been taking that time to figure that out, right? And I think like we did what we could, you know, with the resources that we had. And I guarantee you, is this being recorded? Because if I say this right now, like they're going to play it back for me sometime. Right?
It is being recorded.
Oh, okay. So I guarantee you that next time when we release something, there will be a bigger push, you know, and that accessibility note will be addressed. So we were aware. The fact that you called me, I'm like, did anyone else call me here? Like,
your phone is off. Over to you, Philo.
But thank you for that question.
My reaction when I heard your question, your first question on why aren't we marketing, why aren't you guys doing this, you know, was the traditional one where I was going to stand up and say, do you know what you're talking about? Do you know how much we've suffered in this business? We have worked really hard to be where we are, and it's not hard, it's not easy. It's totally difficult. However, because this is the Media Challenge Initiative, I am going to think about what I am going to say. One of the things, doing theater in Uganda is practically impossible. Ours is a specialized craft where you must use a specialized venues. And right now in Uganda, we only have one specialized venue, one real specialized venue. Then we have maybe in Kampala 2 or 3 others that are still existent. When I entered this business, there was hope, because in Kampala alone, there were like 40 venues where you could show your piece of theater. So you are sure that if you invested money in big marketing, and people used to do that. Alex Mukulu would fly a plane with the banners, and he would make back his money because he'd be filling the theater for six months. But right now, the terrain has changed. We have to accept that the terrain has changed. People have alternatives. But even with alternatives, people still seek intimate entertainment, which is what theater gives you, that I'm seeing you, you're seeing me, I can touch you, I can feel you in the space, and I'm feeling your talent. People still want that. But it becomes very impossible for you to be able to sell that when the people who should be offering you opportunities to be able to express yourselves creatively in the way we do are actually selling you that opportunity. If you go to the Uganda, where did you get those 300 people? Anyway.
Family members.
If you go to the Uganda National Cultural Center now, Uganda National Cultural Center, you have to pay to access the center. You pay, I think, 2 million shillings per show, even though you get only 10 people, 15 people. I've been through it very recently. And a professor came and watched my play, and she was, I think, with her friend, and that was it. That was the audience. But we had to pay for that show ourselves. So we are in a country where our country is selling to us our culture. Our country is selling to us opportunity for us to express ourselves, which is wrong. So when you come and find the circumstances that we have to work under, then it becomes totally difficult. I have been, if you look back at comedy, how comedy practice came into Uganda 20 years ago. If you read the books, you'll find Philip Luswat and Theatre Factory. You also find Amarula family in the story of where it all began. And comedy, how did comedy grow in Uganda? We didn't have money then. We didn't do any marketing then. I just told my team at the time, there's a Kiswahili saying, kizuri chajiuza, kibaya chajitembeza. I just said, let's do something good. Let's do something good. People will come. And the time we started, they used to pay us a plate of chips and 2 bottles of Guinness beer after every show. And these were my students at the university. And we kept going. And I empathize with Prof because now it's totally impossible to get students to do what I did 20 years ago with my class, what I did with Wetala as well. So slowly, venues became small. Venues became small on their own, and then they would tell us now, this place is too small. You guys come to this side. And that's how even the Ghana National Cultural Center invited us into the auditorium. The auditorium became too small. They gave us the gardens. The gardens became too small. And before we knew it, comedy is now a huge industry out of which people are making a lot of money. We didn't have the kind of marketing you were thinking. We did a great product. And the people who were in leadership at the time noticed the craft, noticed that there is something here, let us give it opportunity. It is something, I think it's like the people who are supposed to take, our government has the same mentality as you people. And it goes down to what I was telling you, that we are being trained, it seems deliberate, to be uncritical and unanalytical in our education system. Because we're not asking questions that we need to be asking. So we don't want to go and be disturbed too much. The same student prof teachers are the same ones I teach. People who are totally disinterested, and I'm sure many of you might be sharing in this sentiment in your own experiences dealing with your fellow students. And you said about going to the cinemas and finding no Ugandan content. There is a lot of Ugandan content being filmed every day, but it's the same mentality. Though also you have to, I'll take you back to the same question. Are we creating the right characters? Who is a Ugandan hero? That is something that is disturbing me. I'm actually actively studying it now. I'm trying to find out, and I'm working on it. I'm not just speaking. Who is the Ugandan hero? Who is the Ugandan heroine? Is it that person who, if you watch our movies, our Bina Uganda, it is people mostly who are seated, and then after that, I've stolen his wife. He goes and steals my wife. After stealing my wife, I go and sleep with his house girl. His house girl gives me HIV. He also has HIV. I go and curse the woman, and we both cry. Tell me, apart from, say, Tebere very recently, and I'm not going to say that Tebere is the monumental show that is going to break box office. No. But Tebere, all it did for me was that it gave me a different perspective. I've always seen, and I loved it out of curiosity. I've always seen these guys who come to my gate and I pay them 20K to take my rubbish. Every month I pay 20K. I see them coming there like 10 on top of the truck. And I say, where do they go? Where do they come from? So Tebere took you to where they go and where they come from, in between, for you are in the middle there. That was interesting. Are we telling that kind of story? But is that the story? Is that the hero? So the moment we start learning who our Wakaima is, if you look at Ugandans, we celebrate Bad Black. She's a thief. We celebrate Black White. He's a thief. We celebrate Mbuga. He's a thief. We celebrate, who's the other guy? We celebrate, no, not me. If you look at the people who are our heroes, when someone goes, we vote people into office and steal from them before we give them the vote. They say, when they go, we say, and indeed, we start seeing change. Even though we know it is illegal, we celebrate it and anticipate it. If it doesn't happen, we will feel bad. So if he did the right thing, he said, I'm not going to be a thief, I'm not going to cheat. You try doing that in our Uganda today. Maybe that is the hero. Maybe that is the Wakaima. Maybe our hero here needs to be a shrewd person. And none of us is creating that kind of person. Instead, we are creating crying women and brutish men. How far are they going to take us at the box office?
Wow. Fantastic. I think there was one question which disturbed me, and I'm going to take it over to, she mentioned something to do with the African story and the depth as well. Can you handle that? Because I don't seem to understand what an African story is. Do we have a standard of what an African story should be or should not be, please?
So like Dr. Sally said, Africa is a mosaic. You know, we're so many millions of little pieces, and each one of us represents a piece. So I think how to tell the African story is to search within yourself. I have been told many times by, well, I don't speak my mother tongue embarrassingly. I try to really do pieces in Luganda to search within myself and my surroundings. And for me, that is my African story. I have grown in, I've stepped in Kenya a bit on field trips when they tell you, oh, now you're at the border. But this is all that I know. However, I'm a bit whitewashed. So that's my story, yeah? You have your own story. You have your own story. So searching within yourself. That even history is a bit, watered down because in our culture we don't have record keeping per se, it's word of mouth. So when grandmother X passes on, the story dies with her. But tracing back to your roots and being vocal about it is how you can go as deep as possible. So I would say in the simplest way is to search within yourselves. The answer that we seek is within yourself. Yes, I don't know if that's the response people wanted, but yeah.
I think it is. I think it is. I think, was it Wainaina, the late, who talked about how to tell an African story, and where it seems to a lot of us, an African story is one where you, and he has talked about characters, you have a character with this leg is like that, mucus coming out of their blood. Is that the African story you want to see? I think we need to investigate what an African story needs to be or ought to be.
Yes, that has reminded me. It needs a bit of being intentional about it and making research, because these things are there, they're existing. What Mr. Loswata said about Wakaima, I recently read a few books about Bunyoro Kitara and those caves that have milk, and the story behind that. When you compare and contrast with the African story we're being told now, what's Chichupuri? You get it?
It's fake.
It's fake. It's not
original. It's not real.
But and people who are telling the African story, are they Africans? That's also another question.
Must they be Africans? That's also another story. Yeah. To tell the African story, must you be African? So again, to consume.
It's actually about who has the right to represent, who has the mandate to represent. Actually, anyone can do it, but it goes back to what you said. Research, take time to understand the grounding from which Ray spoke about.
Wow, fantastic. Due to time, we're going to take one more question. One more. The other questions shall be directed to individuals. Okay, so yeah, like I said, one question in less than a minute. Where's the microphone? Just choose whoever you want, by the way. Yeah. And keep your question short and direct.
Thank you very much. I'm Nayeba Barak from Cavendish University. I'm going to begin with one great philosopher once said, Alexander Pope, a little modernity is a dangerous thing. Drink deep the western spring of civilization or taste not. I'm going direct to, I just forgot your name, the gentleman who is an actor.
Legendary Philip Luswata.
You criticize so much the Ugandans, the Masoro Queen and whatever you were talking about. But when, to me, I don't understand. I have read books of people like Chinua Achebe. I've read books of Ngugi wa Thiong'o. I have read books of our very own Ugandan, Okoth from the north. When you look at their story, and people from Zambia and Zimbabwe, when you look at those books, all their stories, you see when Ngugi was writing in Kenya here, you may think he was with Chinua Achebe in Nigeria. Their stories look the same, their books look the same. And it is up to today that you find that I'm interested in reading things for a part longer it is. But why is it, we are in Uganda, people don't have interest in these stories that you make. You find that even I don't know anything about it. What is that thing that you've made that actually makes us not have interest in your books? Because actually we don't have interest in your books. However much, that is the truth, because we don't know what you are writing. And I'm sorry, that is it. That's what is making it, you find that young people don't have.
What's your question?
My question is, why is it young people today are not taking part in whatever you are doing? What is that thing that makes, are your stories very hard? Are they not telling what we want?
Okay.
Then lastly, to the lady, doctor, I think I'm going to appear somehow controversial because, you see, as young people, we either need to be angry with this generation that we are in, or we are all going to perish. I think, doctor, this perspective at which you are speaking at, you are speaking as a Pan-Africanist. And what you need to do, I think, let me pose my question, please, just in seconds. Doctor, what you need to do, you need to tell this generation that in the next 50 years you are not going to be there, whether you want it or not. It is our generation. So, what is making...
What's your question? What's your question?
My question to doctor actually is, what should we do? What should these young people do? You have spoken. You have told us what we are meant to do. Now, how can you bring into action what we should do? Thank you.
Wow. Do we have to respond to these questions?
No, it's okay. I can. To be honest, I do feel his frustration, and he's entitled to his frustration. But I would like to qualify the fact that I did qualify the Masolo Queens. I did qualify Full Figure. And I did say that those are the people from whom we are seeing the world. Those are the people through whom we are appreciating and seeing visions of ourselves and our future. Most of you have seen how many people follow Ichuli. Yeah? Ichuli is called Jaja Ichuli, and all those people. Those are the people we've tuned, we go into our TikTok every day to listen to. I did qualify them. I didn't attack them at all. And I said that we need to understand what is taking us there. Because when I listen to them, I feel they are uncritical, they are basic, they are analytical. And maybe it points at what you might be at the end of the day, which is something you also need to be very worried about, as where are they taking me? Where are they taking me? That said, I'm happy that you're challenging me. You know, I need to work harder.
Finally, thank you so much, Doctor. Maybe the last word, and we wrap this up.
Thank you very much for that wonderful question. Actually, I did say we are not going to be here in the next 50 years.
Yes.
And then I said, even when we go, this country is going to remain. So I said, we shall not be here, you will be here.
Yeah.
So you need to plan for this country. And basically, you talk about the Chinua Achebe, and all those wrote from the crisis of colonialism.
Yes.
They were all talking about the clash of culture, traditional culture with colonial culture, particularly religion. They were informed at their time to be in touch with their society and see this clash. What we are requesting of younger people today, be in touch, be engaged, and then with the knowledge and skills you picked from class, organize this into information that others are going to find worthy to read, and indeed you can do it. That is my parting shot to you. But as you do all these things, let's be respectful to everyone who is different from us, whether they are rural, whether they are urban, whether they are like us or different, etc., etc. And maybe the last thing to the producers, how can your things be accessible to rural areas? That's where the majority of people are. That's for us to reflect on as we go. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. A round of applause to our panelists, Dr. Sarah Sally, the beautiful angel here, Raymond, and Philip Luswada. I've been your moderator this afternoon. My name is Samuel Tala, and I love the fact that this has become a safe space for divergent views. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, what are we discussing? We're building an inclusive nation, and inclusion includes even the people that we do not seem to agree with, even the views that we are far from. We just need to include all of us. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you so much.
What a powerful session that has been. Thank you so much, Sami Wetala, and all the creatives that we've had on board. I mean, we had an educator, we had a writer, we had an animator, a playwright, an actor, a poet, a comedian, and a media personality.
Yes.
I mean, it couldn't get any better. Yes, right about now, we're going to have an energizer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ooh, we've been sitting for quite some time now. DJ, can you give us a beat? And as the DJ gives us a beat, can you please all stand up?
Please, ladies and gentlemen, let's rise up on our feet. Let's get up, please.
Let's get up. DJ, we're waiting for that beat. A beat, not a song.
Yeah,
a beat.
A beat. Let's have a beat, DJ.
I don't know about you, Ishak, but thank you.
Yes, let's dance. Come on, everybody.
According to hip hop, you have to bounce a bit. Bounce a bit. Come on.
Everybody, let's not be lazy. Come on.
Bounce a bit.
Bounce. Show off. Show some swag.
Are you ready? Are you ready? Say yes. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Are you ready? When I say you, you say Ganda. You.
Ganda.
You.
Ganda.
When I say you say C-I-M.
C-I-M.
Bounce. 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 Okay. Thank you so much, DJ.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, DJ.
Amazing. Amazing.
We can take our seats.
All right, we still welcome you to the Media Expo 2022, ladies and gentlemen. Everyone who's around, the media practitioners, the different students from all the institutions that are being represented here today. Thank you so much for coming. Now, we're going to have our our next session or panel discussion, which is going to be about facilitating the National Development Plan through the media.
And the special thing about this discussion is that we will be having two panelists. And the very first panelist I would like to introduce is Anthea Ibembe, a journalist.
Miss Anthea, yes?
Miss Anthea, waiting for you. And the second panelist we're going to have is Sandra Twinoburio, a media personality and a journalist.
Amazing.
Yes.
Yeah. Otherwise, as we wait for them to come on stage, I hope the students are actually recording content. Yeah. You're going to need this content for the finale, for the grand finale. That's on Friday when you're going to be up here showcasing all that you got. And don't be afraid to ask all these celebrities the questions that you want to ask. Feel free to approach them. Get an interview from them, write down something, interact, yes, above all, have fun.
Yeah.
It's your thing. Yeah, so I believe our panelists are actually coming on board. Miss Sandra Twinoburio and, of course, Miss Anthea Ibembe. Yeah, otherwise, Mr. DJ, play something for us as we wait for our panelists to come on board. We still welcome you. Thank you so much for being around.
Tulinobrio. And this particular session is about the NDP3. How many of you are familiar with it? The NDP3, okay, NDP2. No? NDP1. NDP plain. Okay. Looks like we have to be quite exhaustive. Anyway, this session, in brief description, it's the NDP is one of the 5 series of the National Development Plan to achieve Vision 2040. It's an ambitious plan that seeks to transform Uganda to a modern and prosperous country within 30 years. By harnessing opportunities within sectors such as agriculture and tourism, along with promoting social development in sectors like health, education, and environmental protection. So, as you know, the media plays a very strong role in communicating this and in building the nation through identity formation, facilitating dialogues like what we have here today, and facilitating accountability to the NDPs. So you'll be very interested to know that today we have an economist, someone from the media, and also an academic to kind of be accountable to us who don't know anything about NDPs, interestingly. So the purpose of this session is to discuss the critical role of the media in nation building, facilitating effective public service delivery, as that is the theme of this expo. So briefly, I will introduce the panelists, starting from the one who has the most limited time, Professor Kiza. So Dr. Julius Kiza is an associate professor of political economy and development in the Department of Political Science and Public Administration at Makerere University. He holds a Bachelor of Arts in Honors from Makerere University and a first-class Master of Public Policy from the University of Sydney in Australia. He has a PhD from the same university. He also studied his postdoctoral studies at Cambridge University and has been a visiting fellow at several colleges within the US, the EU, and Africa. He also has an active research and publications interest in institutional political economy, among 1,000 other accolades. So, Dr. Kiza.
Very good afternoon. Very happy to be here. It's an honor to be back home. Now, the way we're going to be doing this conversation is going to really be turned a bit upside down, simply because our panelist is actually leaving us in the next 5 minutes. So I will hit the elephant in the room right away. Mr. Julius Kiza, it's an honor to see you once again, speaking on more or less the similar issues. And today we'll be speaking about facilitating the National Development Plan through the media. And my very first question to you this afternoon is, when you really look at our topic today, what comes to mind? You're seated in a room of young journalists that one may not have heard, if you're being honest, of the National Development Plan, and are simply wondering, why are we talking about it? What is your take on that?
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Moderators, thank you, organizers of this great platform. I nearly said, no, I'm not going to come, but I thought that as a university teacher, my currency is really sharing knowledge, especially with the young. When I share knowledge with the young, I feel younger, although I'm 93 years old. You see, journalists are doubting. Okay, so when we discuss the subject of journalism, the subject of National Development Plan, and the subject of the role of professional journalists in this space, in boosting or blocking public service delivery, I find this very interesting for different reasons. Number one, journalists have an interesting label in the ordinary community, namely that you are authors of the first draft of history. This first draft of history usually is full of errors. Professors who go into publishing business usually produce several drafts before they send them off for publication. The typical journalist is a journalist in a hurry. The journalist working under pressures of time, with editorial policies, wherever you are publishing, pushing you to have something delivered, probably every night or every other 2 days. Now, for me, one of the things that come to mind is how do we ensure high quality journalism? How do we ensure that this journalism you are involved in is going to be value adding, not just reporting news? The second thing which comes to mind is that, you see, journalists are part of civil society. So when we say what's the role of civil society in delivering public services and in ensuring that the National Development Plan gets delivered, you are part and parcel of civil society. You are co-authors of your destiny. And therefore, I invite you to invest your efforts in appreciating what we call citizen agency. As citizens, as members of organized society, you want to ask that question: do we boost the ability of citizens to hold duty bearers accountable, as the theory of citizen agency argues? Citizen agency simply means that rights holders who benefit from public service delivered by duty bearers must be able to wake up and demand for effective governance and effective service delivery. So the question becomes, what role does journalism play in that space to hold duty bearers accountable, to mobilize the citizens and ensure that citizen agency gains traction in our society? The third issue, and this is an important concern especially to the young, is that journalism is of different varieties. I hope we agree. Different varieties. Some may be called news reporting. Some may be called investigative journalism. Some may be called writing features or columns, etc. So in other words, there are different varieties of journalism. So if we ask the question on the role of journalism in pushing or blocking public service delivery, we want to ask you, which kind of journalist are you? Which kind of journalism do you practice? And my concern as a citizen now to you, as journalists, is that most journalists are interested in news reporting. And most of this is sensationalism. Can we invite you as young people to invest in what seems to be lacking in this country? And that is investigative journalism. Now that leads me to my last point. Namely, that the space in which you're going to practice your profession is a space that is characterized by not just disruptive digital technologies, but is also a space that is driven by the call for data science, the call for evidence-based work in the public space, but also in civil society. The idea is that, are you ready to engage with the new dispensation of data analytics, so that your journalism is evidence-based, not just giving opinions? Because many journalists will say, this is an opinion. Many journalists will actually write what they think and concoct things which appear to be interviews of certain stakeholders. And I'm saying this because I've seen it. Somebody says Professor Julius Keys, and they give the titles and then say this. I've never met them. I've never